February 10th, 1978, Van Halen 1 was released, and I was in 10th grade. I remember this bass player that I played with named Matt that brought the album and his entire stereo over to our band practice space, which was in a church that my buddy Pete's dad was the minister of, set it up on stage, and played the opening track of Van Halen 1, which was Running with the Devil. As soon as it finishes, he goes, "Check this out." And then I heard this. And then that led to this. We looked at each other, me and my friend Pete, the other guitar player that I was playing with, and we said, "What is that?" I remember my brother John, we got the record and we listened to it at home and we were just looking at each other. We had this big console stereo and we looked at each other and said, "What is this?" And then we took the LP and we put it at 16 speed. We could tell it was a B-flat major chord, but there was no way anyone could play it that fast with those intervals. It was impossible. We had no idea that he was tapping with his right hand. This is what I like to call the Van Halen effect. When you hear something that you really don't know what it is, and it ends up changing music, in this case, changing the way rock guitar was played radically after this. Remember, this is really how you discover new music. Either one of your siblings came home and was playing a record, you heard something on the radio and you bought it, or one of your friends turned you onto it. There was no Spotify or iTunes to discover music through. What happened after that is that Van Halen became a massively big band on that first record. But the reason they became a big band wasn't just Eddie's guitar playing, it was that they had massively big hit songs, really pop songs, which then led to a movement of rock bands, hard rock bands that had huge hit radio songs with really big guitar players that employed these same kinds of techniques that Eddie Van Halen was doing on that first Van Halen record. People like these weren't the only people that were influenced by Eddie Van Halen from the first record. This is from Nuno Bettencourt. "The sound of that album was so alien to me that it might as well have been a spaceship flying over my house. Before that, I loved Queen and Led Zeppelin. You knew that that was guitar. Then, all of a sudden, I heard Van Halen and thought, what is going on here?" Paul Gilbert from Mr. Big said, "The album was unfair to everyone. Eddie's innate musical genius ears, combined with the athletic prowess he got from 8 hours a day bedroom practicing, along with an indestructible rhythmic groove developed from jamming with his brother, results in a record of non-stop, jaw-dropping awesomeness." John 5 from Rob Zombie said, "It's one of the most important albums in the world of guitar. Very few things change the landscape of guitar playing like the first Van Halen record." The Van Halen effect, I would argue, lasted predominantly through the 80s. You had these huge bands with these superstar lead guitarists that used a lot of Eddie's techniques, but that all ended during the grunge movement. Now, with grunge bands, there were still guitar solos. Soundgarden had them. Pearl Jam had them. Alice in Chains. Kurt Cobain had guitar solos in almost every Nirvana song. I don't know why Nirvana has this rap of there's no guitar solos in it. It was actually an important part of each of their songs. Many of the times he would just stick to the melody. When the nu metal movement really exploded in the late 90s with bands like Korn, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, Creed, Slipknot, Disturbed, POD, Deftones, Papa Roach, Chevelle, Puddle of Mud, very few of these bands would have guitar solos in their songs. And if they did have them, I mean, some of the bands did. Creed, Mark Tremonti from Creed would have guitar solos. And obviously Avenged Sevenfold was a huge band where the guitar was incredibly important. But for the most part, guitar solos started to disappear out of rock music in the mid-2000s. But then this new thing happened that changed everything, and it was called YouTube. In 2007, my younger brother John sent me a video, and it was this. This was the first time I'd heard of Guthrie Govan. He was playing over a Larry Carlton-style backing track, and if you notice, it has 2.5 million views. And the other thing is that it was released on January 16th, 11 and a half years ago. I really remember it well because I used to play these guitar solos of Guthrie's for my son Dylan when he's a baby. This became the new place to see the Van Halen Effect in action again. These people would seemingly come out of nowhere, very similar to Van Halen on the first record, playing these amazing things technically, rhythmically, that you'd never heard before or didn't even know were possible. And they had an avenue now to get their playing out there for people to hear, which was YouTube. The only difference is that they were playing a lot of times over backing tracks. They weren't part of any huge radio bands that had massively big songs and selling millions of records. They were simply guitar players for guitarists. You can see them all over YouTube, on Instagram. People like Andy James. Or Tom Quayle. On Instagram, Mateus Asado. Now, you do have your bands out there that have big guitar solos in them with great players, like Tosin Abasi from Animals as Leaders. Here's the interesting thing. These guys like Guthrie Govan are not part of some huge band with hit songs on the radio playing in front of hundreds of thousands of people making millions of dollars. As a matter of fact, Guthrie has hundreds of millions of views on YouTube and doesn't even have his own channel. It's all other people putting up videos of him. So that begs the question, is the guitar virtuoso movement dead, or is it just only going to exist on places like YouTube and Instagram with people just playing along with backing tracks or solo guitar pieces? I know a lot of you will say, well, guitar music isn't completely dead. What about the progressive metal movement? What about Animals as Leaders and Periphery? Yeah, but these are very small movements. You heard Misha Mansour, if you watched my interview of him, saying that Periphery never makes any money when they're out touring. The way that he makes a living is to sell things like his pickups and his guitars and his amplifiers and things like that. I mean, when you think about it, guitar solos were huge in the 70s. You had songs like Do You Feel Like We Do by Peter Frampton that are 13 minutes long that have 5 guitar solos in it, or Freebird that has a whole 3 minutes of a guitar solo at the end, or Hotel California that has a 2-minute guitar solo at the end, or Journey, bands like that. I mean, their guitar solos in Boston and all these bands were major parts of the songs. The guitar players themselves were huge stars. In the late 80s, we even had guitarists like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai that were instrumental artists that had platinum records. So my question to you is, has the guitar virtuoso movement and the guitar soloist been relegated to platforms like YouTube and Instagram forever, or will it make a comeback in mainstream music? I'd love to hear your thoughts. That's all for now. Please subscribe here to my Everything Music YouTube channel. If you're interested in the Beato book, go to my website at www.rickbeato.com. You can also help support my channel by joining the Beato Club. It's our version of Patreon, and you can find the link on my page. And remember to follow me on Instagram at rickbeato1. Thanks for watching.